We are unity, aren't we? You feel good about your spiritual practice? I hope so. So what do you think we're going to talk about today? There's not much going on in the world, not much going on in our minds, so I thought we'd talk about worms and compost. I'm not kidding. I actually contemplated having you guys watch a video on composting today. So my little one got for her last birthday, and me, I put it on a shelf until we're ready for the project, a worm farm, right, that you can see through both sides. You know what I'm talking about, those little worm farms? So we got the worm farm, and I was really excited, and I guess it was last summer. But, I wanted to be ready for the worms. We didn't want to stick worms in there and not know what we were doing, so... Anyway, we're just getting to the worm farm, and it's like the second winter, and we're now looking for worms. And I found one big worm and a few little ones, and so we've got it all ready, but now we can't find all the parts, right, to the package. So we can't find the sand. And so I'm sitting here going, like, how important are these things? I don't know, but, like, I don't want our first experience with this awesome, great big worm to be like the worm death farm, right? So I started looking up, and I could have just called Stan, but instead I started looking up soil and worms and this, and I'm even concerned, we have magnetic sand in the house, but I can't find the sand that came with the thing, and I'm like, is magnetic sand gonna harm the worms? Is it gonna flip them upside down? Do they have some sort of magnetic poles? So I am with my daughter, who is 6, and we are just going through soil and worm videos so we can learn a little bit more about the worm and what it needs. And so I came across this video that talked about having some of the newest information on soil and gardening and what it takes for soil to be really healthy. Because I stopped at don't collect soil from areas like this, in the instruction manual for making this worm farm. And I thought, there are places to collect the soil from and places not to collect the soil from. I got to take care of this worm. See where I'm going at all? Not yet. So we got to take care of this worm. But gardening is all about making healthy soil, right? And so this new research about soil is all about the microbiome. It's all about the microbes and what's in it, right? So you want to increase what's in it because that's what makes, healthy soil makes good life and good vegetables. So it's all about making that, and the microbes are the key to the healthy soil. The more microbes you have in the soil, the healthier the soil is. So all you have to do is have more microbes. Cool. So then the guy in this video starts going into the myths and the old stuff about soil science, and he says that there's a myth that, now, of course, you can buy microbes in a container, right? Like you can buy a bag of microbes. So people try to buy the microbes and stir them into the soil and go, okay, now I'm going to have great soil and I'm going to be able to garden, have healthy life. And he said there's a myth about that, about just adding them to the soil. Some people use compost tea, weed tea, but he says, that's one thing, and that'll feed the microbes for a moment, but then once that food source runs out, then you'll go back to the exact same level of microbes that you started out with. Remember now, microbes are the key to the healthy soil. And then he says there's other things called shoot organic matter. So you can get compost of leaves. Do you think I'm going into too much detail here? Just stick with me. Just stick with me. So there's leaves and shoots and manure, and you can get this stuff and you can make a good compost, right? And you can add that to the soil, and for about 5 years, it's going to be good and you're going to have benefits. And then, it's a little tricky because it creates some byproducts, and also it runs out eventually. And some of that stuff in there is hard for the microbes to eat because it's pretty advanced compost that you're giving them to eat. And so you've got adding food to the soil, but that can be hard for them to digest. Some people even spread milk or molasses. And I'm thinking, interesting, pouring milk or molasses on your soil so that there can be more microbes. But again, what happens? You feed it, you get more microbes, right? Because there's more food available, so you get all those microbes. But then once they eat that up, it goes back to the same level of microbes, right? Because you cannot sustain it. So what you have to do is, we've got something going on back there. We've got rain behind the screen. Did you guys hear it, or is it just me? Okay. Whoosh back there. Just kidding. I want to say something that I'm not going to say about our new little system. We have a funny little system, but I'm not going to say it because it'll be a distraction for everyone. Back to the soil. It's okay. You're good, Joe. I love you. No matter what you're doing, tapping on something, just tap into the soil. Maybe you're making soil and making a worm farm. I love how natural we are. So anyway, the nutshell is no matter what you do to the soil, right? No matter what you do to the soil, unless you work at a deep level of actually increasing what they call, like, I think it's the necromass. Okay, good. The necromass. And working on it at a deep level, you are going to increase the level of microbes for a time being, and then they are going to die back down to whatever they were before you started working on it. So you have to look deeper. It has to be more systematic. You have to really work on shifting the system. Yeah? So too is life, right? That is exactly what we're swimming in. We can do all of these things to make life better, to make changes, to try to get along, to do things in our world, in our beings, and in our lives. But as long as they're little short-term solutions and they're not about growing consciousness, we will not be able to sustain it. We will not be able to maintain it, right? Has anyone ever wanted something more for someone than they want for themselves? Yeah. Has anyone ever just wished you could make the decisions for someone because you know, or you think you know, right? You wish I could just make that decision for someone, but you know that's never going to work, right? Because you know in raising a child, right? You know in supporting a friend that the best you can do is nourish the soil. The best you can do is bring everything you got, bring all the love, bring everything you've got, right? And that's how you grow. That's how you grow consciousness, that's how you heal, right? So we are facing a time in ourselves and in our communities where we have a lot of issues with what is, right? And you can fill in the blank on where you are in the stories, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in your other lives, wherever it is, whether it's what you're witnessing in the collective or within you. But we have the opportunity right now to step into our principles and to step into unity, because that's what we're here to be doing, right? We can be ordinary or we can be extraordinary. The world knows how to do ordinary. And what does it end in? A 3-letter word: war. It ends in war. It ends in war against the self when we don't accept reality. We don't accept what's happening. And it's like, man, I have to argue with this. I have to strangle this because this can't be happening. Who's been there? Been there, done that. This can't be happening, right? That is a war with what is. What happens inside of ourselves when we do that? What happens when you're doing the deep healing work? Anna Griesbach from the podium today shared some of her favorite books on transformation. Do those favorite books say, take your inner child and, I mean, we won't go into that. Reject, shame, blame, hate, cut off? No, deep healing work we know from our practice in New Thought, our practice in positive progressive spiritual principles in Christianity. We know that we were taught by the master teacher. We know that Buddha taught about being present and being in love, that love is always the answer. Now that can sound airy-fairy, right? Like, how is love the answer? But love is the great harmonizing faculty. That's what Charles Fillmore said. Love is the great harmonizing faculty. So when we find something that feels like within ourselves on our healing journey, that feels like it's off or out or it's harming us, it's against us, do we reject it? Do we push it away? Or do we open our hearts up and then enter a deeper space of listening? We enter a deeper space of listening, while at the same time, we grow our strength, we grow our firm foundation in who and whose we are. All we have to do, always, on the spiritual path, is listen and step forward with the best consciousness we have in the moment. can I trust that the beloveds on the path with me step forward with the best they know in each moment? I mean, sometimes, yes, sometimes there is such a lack of light. People make a decision, right, that they really think is not the best decision, and I'm doing it because I want to harm you, right? But for the most part, most people know their good God essence, and most people try to tune in to the best they know at the time. Now, we've all made choices. We've all done things, right, that we think are the best for us, but they're not. And what happens? We learn and we grow, yeah? We understand more. We understand more about ourselves, more about our lives. But the only thing I've really ever seen heal and change people is love. I have seen love heal prejudice. I have seen love heal hate. I have seen love heal division. But if there is no uniting, if there is no connection, if there is divisiveness and there is no coming together, whether it's in our own healing journey, in our own beings, in our own body, right? I cannot deal with that. I lived through some of that torture. I have to disown that part of myself. Does that ever result in healing? No, healing always results in coming back to wholeness, recognizing the wholeness, even if I don't want to say that's part of my wholeness. So can we apply our principles and understand that just as this body being is a wholeness, so are we all wholeness, so is everything a part of the great wholeness, the grand overall design, the great wholeness that is God expressing, that is creation. Now in unity, our passion is co-creating a world that works for all. So can we do that? That's a big statement. Can we create a world that works for all? I know what we can do is show up in love. I know that. That is something that I know. Reverend Brenda called this one of her favorite lines in Unity. She says, in Unity, we don't tell people what they think. We provide tools for spiritual exploration and discovery. Sometimes on our own spiritual path, it feels like it's taking too long. Sometimes with the people we love, it feels like it's taking too long. Sometimes with the world around us, it feels like it's taking too long. So what do we do when we feel like it's taking too long? Love your God, love your neighbor. Mark 12:30-31. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all of your strength. The second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment, the master teacher said, greater than these. There is no commandment greater than these. So what does that really mean? To me, that means show God in how you treat people. Show God in how you love people. Show God in how you live your compassion. Demonstrate God. Demonstrations of God are not argued with because it's love. And it's that love that binds us. And we can do it even in difficult situations. We do it even in our own healing journey. And that's what the evolution of consciousness is. I mean, that's a fancy way of saying we're all growing ourselves up here. We're growing God up. And to go even further into Charles Fillmore, Unity's co-founder's teaching, he taught that this is the second coming. The first coming is the master teacher teaching about these principles, bringing them and demonstrating them in one body being on earth. Demonstrating the Christed nature, demonstrating the awakened one, the anointed one, the one that is in realization that I and the Father or I and the Source are one. That happened once in Jesus the Christ. It has happened through master teachers throughout time that have gotten that idea and embodied it. The second coming, Charles Fillmore talks about, is the coming of the collective awakening of that truth. It's huge. And I feel like, I don't know if anyone else feels, kind of think we all feel this, but maybe everyone thinks that about themselves. But I feel like we have entered an alternate reality where all of a sudden these principles for my whole lifetime, these principles have been a little bit contained to me and Erin's life. Like, how do I make Erin's life better? Sometimes Erin's a mess. Erin's wasting time doing this. Who is she on the planet? What is she about? What does she want to do? How can I improve my relationships, my life? All of these things, right? And then my prayer was, God, make a plant out of me, because the plant was the only thing I could think of that naturally reproduces, and spreads goodness, right? So it's like, okay, I will do this with my life in whatever way I can. But now there is another imperative, and it's the one that we've been told about, that Scripture has talked about, that has been there forever and ever. And I think we knew it. It was right in the midst of us, but it's here, and it's now, and it's singing, and it's loud, and it's banging. And what? Did we think it wasn't real? Right? Did we think it was just in a book? The second coming? The Christ awakened in you, the Christ among all of us, the Christ awakening. It's not going to take everyone. It's not going to take everything. But the more we see this, the more we demonstrate it, it is magnetic. It is real. And now it really is in our faces that this is all it is. The evolution of consciousness. We are like worms in sand, but we are little people on an earth. But here's the good news. We are also the evolution of consciousness. We are the evolution of consciousness. And this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. Now, friends, I know in my own life, when stuff hits the fan, I go, no, not now. I don't want it, or I didn't want it like this. Take it back. I want life to be smooth and easy and graceful. No, no, no. But what happens when those things come up? I grow, I transform, I change. My I am nature changes. I get more about what I am. I get less attached to what I'm not. But if I put on the brakes and I argue with it, it's like it's nice in theory when I read it in a book or when I go into a therapist's office and I want to chat about my stuff. It's nice then, but really put it in front of me as it's real and, oh, I do not want this bad. I am naming it bad, go away. What happens when we do that? I am at war with what is. And war is the most ordinary thing on this planet. War, domination, control, manipulation. You fill in the blank, right? We've seen that since the beginning. We've got the book. We've got the instruction manual. We know how that turns out. What has yet to be demonstrated, what is yet to come, is the collective awakening. And we're here for it. We're here for it in a way that, at least in my lifetime, I have never felt it before. And I get it, that it's everything. It is everything. Because you know what? As Crazy Carl's great song, 100 Years goes, none of us are going to be here in 100 years. Well, now people are living a little past 100, so if there's a baby in the house, you're going to make it. But 100 years, none of us are going to be here. None of our stuff. It's going to be somewhere with someone else. Nothing that we worked for on the human realm, right? So the only thing that's going to have life is the consciousness. The consciousness that we develop. You know, energy isn't created or destroyed. It merely changes form. So everything that is worth something that we have accumulated will be in consciousness. And that's what we're present to right here and right now. So can we, pull our fears out of all the other realms and breathe into this very sacred divine appointment? To be walking through this time aware of that, aware of it. Can we see ourselves as one. Really see ourselves as one. If this is me and this is us, here it is. I won't fight against it. I won't argue against it. But boy, give me the divine ideas, get me in line with my principles, and let me take action when I am inspired. Divine timing doesn't mean it's an excuse to sit around and say it's all how it needs to be, right? That's not what divine timing is. It's not about going, oh, it's all good, it's all God. It's about going, I'm not going to fight with this moment. I will not create war in this moment, in my being or in my life or in our world. And now, what is mine to do? Now, who is mine to be? I will not argue with the opportunity that this moment brings me. When we take action in our lives and when we create in alignment with our knowing of who we are, our divinity, what we create is consciousness. And our destiny is birthed through us via consciousness. But just like those microbes, the story about the microbes is that they will match the level of whatever the soil can provide. So you don't have to grow microbes at all. All you have to do is nourish the soil. The soil has to itself have a higher capacity for microbes. And then, rather than the microbes, you feed them and then the microbes die back again. You feed them and the microbes die back again. You feed them and the microbes die back again. Then, no matter what you do, as long as you're expanding the capacity, the microbes will rise to fill the space. You are that rising. Namaste.